ask yourself, where are you going to find another unrestored, unmolested original?
6 years later, in 2012, I called this gentleman again, and he said, you know, Paul, he said, I remember you. And he was a lot friendlier this time, probably because he was ready to sell it. But he said he was restoring a 1959 Bonneville, and he said, you come down and ride the Daytona. I did, and I certainly made a quick decision to come home with the bike.
Hi, this is Kaplan. This is one stunning 67 Daytona 500. Every time I ride it, I'm just amazed. A fantastic little bike. I've been selling Triumphs for 35 years, and I've sold a lot of these 500s. I've sold them in baskets, I've sold them restored, but rarely do you find an original. It's like carrying around an egg for 51 years and not cracking it. You find one that's really this sweet, unmolested, unrestored original is pretty much unheard of. So the NADA says it's worth $16,700 today. I believe that's true. What will it be worth 10, 20 years from now? If you buy this bike, I guarantee you, we're going to auction it off and let the market determine what the exact value of it is. I guarantee you that when you go to sell it, it'll be worth more. And if you want to resell it, call us up. We'll resell it for you. If you want to leave it on display in the museum here, which is what we'd like you to do, that would be fantastic. We'd love to have it here. It's a beauty. You should stay with all the memorabilia in the little mini Triumph museum that we purchased from Paul. This bike, unlike a new bike, you buy a new bike, as soon as you roll it off the lot, you lose thousands of dollars. This bike's going up in value every year. And rest assured, the guy that bought it, the guy that was second in line in the bidding, he's gonna feel bad he didn't get it. If you want to resell it, it's a piece of cake, because you just can't get another one. Where are you gonna find an original 51-year-old virgin like this? They just don't exist. So I could keep going all day. I'll just leave you with that. Rest assured, we have 100% positive feedback. We've been on eBay for 20 years. What I'm saying is 100% true. I'm the owner of the New England Motorcycle Museum. I'm an AMCA judge, and I sell a lot of motorcycles. Very rarely does one like this come along. I wish I could afford to keep it myself. I would. Call us if you have any questions, 860-454-7024. God bless England for building kick-ass bikes like this. God bless the USA. Hi, this is Kaplan, owner of the New England Motorcycle Museum. I'm also an AMCA concourse judge, and let me tell you, this is one of, if not the nicest, original, unrestored Triumph Daytona T100R Tiger Super Sports I have ever seen. And the first one I ever laid eyes on was in 1972. My dad bought a 72 Daytona 500, and that was my bike when I was 15 years old. I got it and rode it for years, so I know a lot about these. And let me tell you, to find an original paint bike with the paint as beautiful as this is unheard of. It still has the original pinstripe, which is totally intact, the original world motorcycle speed record holder, decal on the top. The inside of the tank is as beautiful as the outside. The badges are stunning, and the bike's been completely sorted out by the previous owner. Later in the video, Paul Nussbaum, the previous owner of this bike, will give you a narrative, a 13-minute narrative of the history of the motorcycle. So I'll try to keep this part brief, but let's start with the condition of the bike.
It's completely unrestored.
All original. This bike has not been painted, not been touched up. There's no touch-up paint on the paint anywhere. The original chrome is all original. We believe the tires may be original, but we're not sure. They are the made in England Dunlops. The bike has a documented 8,000 original miles. The current NADA value on this bike is $16,740. I would say it's certainly worth every penny, because ask yourself, where are you going to find another unrestored, unmolested original? At just around 8,000 miles, about 150 miles ago, the previous owner took the top end apart, decarbonized the cylinder and cylinder heads, and bored the cylinders 20 over and put brand new Hepalite pistons. I have a copy of the work order in here. This is also one of the most fully documented vintage Triumphs. This bike's 51 years old. I have a letter from the previous owner. I have the owner's handbook. I have a clean state of Ohio title. 2 sets of keys to this bike. Picture of the VIN number of the engine, and we'll do a close-up on it also. In 1967, to commemorate the Daytona 200-mile road race victory in '66, Triumph introduced this, a new twin carbureted Daytona T100R 500 Super Sports. That year was one of the best years ever for Triumph. They set a new all-time U.S. sales record of a total in all of their models of 28,700 motorcycles, and Triumph actually won the famous Daytona 200 road race a second time in 1967. So definitely a storied history on this bike. Like I said, I took this on a test ride, and it runs beautifully. It has a nice high-end rush to the power band with the dual carbs. Let me go over the work order with you quickly, and I'll let you know what's been done to the original motor. The header pipes were replaced with new NOS replicas, the header pipes. They were also ceramic coated on the inside of the pipe so they won't turn blue. The mufflers are the original mufflers, according to the previous owner. He also replaced the primary and the rear chain with new Reynolds chains. So the whole top end was completely rebuilt a couple hundred miles ago. It runs like a top. The carbs were rebuilt, new air filters, new oil, new spark plugs. The valves were adjusted and tuned. Everything in the primary chain case was gone through. The tachometer was rebuilt. Take a look at the tachometer. That's been professionally rebuilt. Again, the pistons are the Hepalite pistons. These are not aftermarket. They're NOS Triumph parts, which are very hard to come by, and it was bored 20 over. The bike also had a brand new throttle cable installed, a new rear foot peg, which actually fell off while it was out on a ride. The new rear foot peg rubber was replaced on both sides. The speedometer bulb was replaced. It has a new front brake cable. The tank badges were restored by Don Hutchinson's Motorcycles in Massachusetts. Those are not reproduction badges. Those are original badges that were professionally restored. Brand new headlight bulb. The center stand spring, which you can see right here, is brand new. The chrome on it's perfect. It's an NOS part. The transmission and gearbox oil is new. The engine oil and primary chain case oil is new. The fuel tank cap was replaced with a new NOS cap. So it has a new gas cap on, new fuel lines, and a new fuel line filter. Again, that's all mostly primary service parts on the bike. The tires appear to be original. They're in excellent condition. A little bit of checking, as you'd expect. The original paint is just stunning on the bike. To me, that's the hallmark. If you painted this bike, you'd cut the value in half. We sold a Triumph 500, which model was that, Kenny? The green was the Enduro model.
The Enduro model.
The Pine.
Oh, the Jack Pine model.
We had a Jack Piner, a '67 Jack Pine 500 that was original paint like this, but it had a seized engine that we auctioned off, and it needed a full restoration that sold for $5,000. We've regularly sold these vintage Triumphs as is, needing work in the $5,000 to $8,000 range. So to find one that's an original, unmolested, concourse to elegance winning bike. This bike, here's some of the trophies that came. Paul kept some of the trophies. We kept some of the trophies. We bought a whole Triumph museum from him. He built a portable Triumph museum in his 5x8 foot trailer with boxes full of Triumph memorabilia, Triumph tools, a huge Triumph plaque with all kinds of Triumph memorabilia on it. We are keeping that for the New England Motorcycle Museum. However, if you see it and you're interested in the museum, portable museum that we purchased from him, you're welcome to purchase or call us and make a purchase offer on that. But this is what comes with the bike. You get the bike, you get the portable easel with the T100R Super Sport sign produced and declaring this is an unrestored original example. And these are just a handful of the trophies. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 trophies. We kept 6 or 7 for the museum, and he kept a few. It's won over 25 shows to my knowledge.
We'll be reaching out to our local benefactors and trying to see if these investors will be, interested in buying this bike and leaving it on display as an investment.
We hope someone like John Tylowski or one of our other benefactors will step up and buy this and keep it in the museum here, because this is, John actually bought 2 stunning BSAs, which would be a perfect complement to this. Here's a couple pictures of the bike when it was in the Concours d'Elegance. Here it is in front of the display. And here's an article. The bike was actually in the Classic British Motorcycle magazine and also classicbritishmotorcycle.com. That's an article that was submitted by Paul and ran in their website. Some more pictures of the motorcycle at the shows. And here's a story Paul had written about the Triumph and the year he purchased it and everything else, and talking about, well, I won't steal his thunder. Later in the video, he's going to give you a complete explanation of it. So as far as the paint goes, this is, come here for a second. There's you can see there's a little bit of patina right here on the paint. Like I'm trying to look for defects now. There's a tiny little chip right here. This is as stunning as it is. There is a little bit of patina, a couple tiny chips right here. That's what you expect on a when you're an AMCA judge. You're looking for originality. That's what you look for. You look for, just a little bit of patina to show this is a 50 plus year paint job, and it has a tiny bit. The original aluminum on the cases has been hand cleaned to perfection. The engine is spotless. Again, it was rebuilt, so all the gaskets were replaced. The carburetors are beautiful. The chain, again, is a new Reynolds chain that was replaced. It's only a couple 100 miles on it, as was the primary chain. The serial number of this bike is H56012, which indicates it's a 500cc displacement. In 67, the number started out at 49,833 and ended at 57,082. So this is serial number T100R H56012. This Daytona 500 was 27 pounds lighter than the 67 650. So it's also was rated at 41 horsepower. So it was lighter, and it had almost as much horsepower. It had about 10 horsepower less. If you come around this side of the motor, you can see the serial number on the engine, H56012. Again, a true matching numbers, unrestored, fully documented, museum quality, show winning Daytona 500 Tiger. So good luck finding a nicer one. I have not seen one anywhere in existence. Not at Mecum, not at any of the big shows, not at Daytona. I'm going to the British Iron Association event next weekend, so I may be taking the bike to that show if it's not sold yet. So it's going up for sale on eBay. If you're interested in the bike, give us a call, 860-454-7024. Stay tuned for the riding portion of the video and for Paul's narrative of his history with the motorcycle. So good luck bidding on this bike. God bless America. Hi, this is Kaplan from the New England Motorcycle Museum. It's Monday, May 14th, and rare occasion where a bike actually exceeds our expectations here. Paul Nussbaum. Paul, come on over here. Paul has a long history with this motorcycle he's going to tell you about, and stay tuned because this is quite the story. Not something you hear every Monday.
Okay, I'm Paul from Northwestern Ohio, and graduated from high school in 1967, and in 1968 I was able to purchase a used 1967 Daytona, and had it for a few years before switching over to dirt bikes, and sold it to a friend and always regretted that. So following my retirement, I started searching for one, and they were very hard to come by. And internet search popped this one up that was on display at the Concourse of Elegance in Cincinnati, Ohio. So it wasn't on eBay or anything like that. Just someone had taken a photo of it and posted it. And the unusual point was that they had the owner's name and town, which I proceeded to Google, and up popped his phone number. And he was from Harrison, Ohio. And I called him, and he was not real friendly, a little standoffish, and he said, "How'd you find out about the bike?" And I said, "Well," I explained it was pictured on the internet. And he said, "This was in 2005 when it was at the Concourse of Elegance." And then I contacted him in 2006, and he said, "Not for sale." He said, "I want to keep it for trading stock." He said, "I've got 5 motorcycles, but I'm more of a car collector." He says, "Why don't you just start collecting memorabilia on the bike, the paper?" So behind me is about 6 or 7 years of research and work to put together this display of original ads from 1966 and 1967.
Just amazing.
And so a couple deals fell through on Daytonas like you're seeing here. And so 6 years later, in 2012, I called this gentleman again, and he said, "You know, Paul," he said, "I remember you." And he was a lot friendlier this time, probably because he was ready to sell it. But he said he was restoring a 1959 Bonneville, and he said, "You come down and ride the Daytona." So I did, and I certainly made a quick decision to come home with the bike. It is an unrestored version, original paint. He did some engine work on it, just minor engine work. He decoked the cylinders, decarboned the cylinders. They call it decoking in England. But it has just a little over 8,000 original miles on it. Normally starts first or second kick. And after having it 6 years now, I've decided to part with the machine, and found that Kaplan Cycles here in the museum would be a great new home for the bike.
We're really grateful you bought it out, Paul. So again, this is an original paint bike. This is unrestored. The paint on the frame, the paint on the tank, everything is original, extremely rare. I just took it for a ride. I also have a long history with Triumphs. My first Triumph was a 72 Daytona 500. I inherited it from my brother when I was 15. So I rode that for a couple years before moving up to a bigger bike, but a fantastic machine. Paul had mentioned earlier, the wheelbase is a little bit shorter than the 650, and it's what, 25 pounds lighter?
Yeah, 23 to 26 pounds lighter than a Bonneville. So they were extremely quick.
The engine, are the pistons or the top end, is that original, or has it ever been?
The pistons have been replaced by the gentleman that I purchased it from. He did that after he decoked the cylinders.
With NOS pistons, board 20 over. That's correct,
Yeah,
Paul.
right, yeah, 20 over. So it was very minor. But he noticed just a little scratch, I think, in the one cylinder, and decided to go ahead and just take care of it when he let it down.
All the electrical, all the everything on the bike, electrically and mechanically, works beautifully.
Right, which is unusual for a Triumph. If any of you people remember Triumphs, they were notorious for, we also, I think, referred to it as darkness by Lucas.
Yeah,
because you were the vibration, you were constantly losing lights and bulbs. But yeah,
look at underneath the seats.
Both the indicator lights work, the amp meter works, the tach, the speedometer work. This is sort of unusual to have in a vintage bike. This is the original tool tray. When I purchased the bike, I could not remember my original 67 that I had having that, and I thought, well, it's probably not correct because it's plastic. And so I contacted Don Hutchinson, who is an expert as far as painting vintage bikes, and he said, no, that plastic tray is absolutely correct.
Fantastic. Again, a bike that exceeds our expectations. Usually we're like, oh, that's too bad. And when it gets here, we see a lot of defects. We haven't said that once. All we've heard is oohs and ahs from Kenny and I. And the supporting documentation is the best I've ever seen. He actually has a book that he wrote about the bike. Is that the book over there, Kenny?
Yes.
It's a book of information and history of the Triumph. that Paul sent us, and Kenny was really excited. He's like, well, Paul's coming today, Paul's coming, and he was reading this, and he knows more about this than I have. I haven't read the whole book, but it's an actual book of the history of the motorcycle and exactly everything that was done to it, and every part and component that was serviced or replaced. And we can go over this later, but it's pretty intense, the documentation that he has here. There's pages and pages and pages of documentation and pictures. It also comes with a matching Freedom 5x8 trailer. It's a 2013 model, V-nose, slanted V-roof, and it's all set up on the side with a museum quality display. This is going to go right in the museum. Show them the bulletin board again. The bulletin board comes off. It's attached by 3 J-hooks up on the top. Just a fantastic display. And the inside of the trailer is equally gorgeous. Did you show them the back of the trailer yet? Paul, tell them about the swoop on the Triumph. You told me today, and I don't want to take credit for that.
Yeah, for you Triumph enthusiasts, the original logo was famous for the sweep, what they called the sweeping R. And when they discontinued production for quite a few years, eventually Triumph started building motorcycles again, as many people know, and a lot of people are riding new Triumphs. And you notice that the sweeping R comes into the H rather than up around the H. So this logo is probably no longer copyrighted, but the new logo is.
Just fantastic. When he pulled up the trailer, I was like, wow, it's gorgeous. And that's part of the deal. We're buying the trailer also. It's just beautiful. The toolkit here. Tell us about the toolkit here. This is in a really beautiful museum quality display. It's the original Triumph toolkit. What can you tell us about that?
Well, it actually was extremely difficult to put together. It took several years looking for different things at vintage bike shows, Battle of the Brits up in Michigan, and some eBay items. There's actually additional tools in there. The original kit, that's the original, one of the original tool pouches there in the lower right, but the original kit did not have that many tools, but I added some things to that. So that's probably just about as rare as the bike to have that many vintage tools with the vintage tool pouch.
Wow. Interruption, the phone was ringing. Yeah, there's an extensive display here that everything comes with the bike as part of the package. Some notes in here. Steve McQueen wrote a TR6 Triumph Bonneville in the movie The Great Escape, as you might know. The stuntman Bud Eakins also wrote a TR6 and successfully made the famous fence jump, which I have a picture of in my bathroom in my house, believe it or not. The director and producer would not allow McQueen to do the jump himself, even though he was quite capable. Steve used to race. Look at all the stuff that comes with this. Look at this. This is the original factory dealer's Triumph brochure that only the dealers got with all the specs. Here's the actual brochure they handed out to the clients. The Daytona only came in one color in '67, this color. Here's the original owner's handbook and service owner's manual. Here's the Cycle World, February '67, showing the Daytona on the front cover. There's a Cycle, February '67, the Cycle World on Triumph right up. This is the workshop manual, the replacement parts catalog, 3 Triumph vintage books along with a vintage sign, a Triumph chair, and all these trophies. Tell us about the shows that you bought it to, Paul. And I understand these aren't even all the trophies you wanted. They're just, you kept a couple of them. So tell us a little bit about this.
Well, the bike was extremely popular at shows, especially with baby boomers. Being from the 60s, a lot of people would walk up and say, hey, I had a bike like that, or my brother had a Bonneville. And again, it was just a popular bike at shows, and usually came home with a trophy or a plaque.
I see there's 15 or 16 trophies here, and there's some that he kept for as keepsakes. Just a beautiful setup. Here's the actual book that he wrote about the motorcycle. And then there's some other vintage. Here's another Triumph monographs, and the Triumph International Owners Club Vintage Bike Magazine collection. Just some amazing museum quality stuff, and that's where all this stuff's
Yeah, I would like to point out that how the Daytona came about was that in 1966, Triumph won the Daytona 200 road race. And so after that 66 victory, they decided to come out with a twin carburetor road version. So the 1967 Daytona was the first 500cc bike that Triumph put dual carbs on. They won the race again in '67. So this bike basically was to commemorate their victory in '66.
The dual carbs obviously are going to dump twice as much fuel into the cylinder, and it has a real, I took it for a nice rip up the street, and it has a real nice top end rush in the top 30% of the RPM range, where a single carb bike would actually not accelerate as quickly. So you can rip down the back straightaway at 100 miles an hour. You're not going to be starving for fuel. So just a fantastic machine. Motorcycles at the Mansion, vintage motorcycle show at the Mansion here in Rockville this weekend. This whole setup's going to go. So Saturday it's going to its first show. I'm quite sure we'll be bringing home a trophy in the British class. So awesome, Paul. Just an amazing setup here. Thank you so much for bringing it out to us.
Yep.
Super grateful. Really appreciate it. It's going to a good cause. Kenny, is there anything you'd like to add in closing? Or?
Well, we're certainly going to reach out to all of our benefactors, and we're going to try and get someone to buy this bike and keep it here on display in the museum. We really just want to roll this whole setup right onto the right into the showroom.
It's a no-brainer, really.
That's opening in a couple weeks here.
All museum quality displays, and the timing couldn't be better. We're a couple weeks away from getting the CO for the big building.
I have to say, as we finish up here, that it's going to be hard to go home without the bike.
I understand. Yeah, if you have a tear in your eye, I get it. It's never easy letting a beauty like that go, but it is going to, you couldn't have picked a better home for it. So
good.
Thanks again, Paul. Okay. God bless America.